Disclaimer: this content is intended for a mature audience only. Viewer discretion is advised. The night was quiet, that kind of quiet that hums softly against the skin, like a heartbeat hiding in the air. Moonlight spilled through the half-open curtains, painting silver along the edges of the room. I sat there, lost in the rhythm of my own breath, the fabric of my nightdress whispering against the pillow beneath me. It wasn't about anything wild or forbidden, just a moment of being human, caught between wanting and wondering, between loneliness and something unnamed. When the door creaked open, it wasn't just the air that shifted, it was the world. His voice caught, sharp as a spark in the dark. My name left his lips, not in judgment, not in confusion, but in something far softer. Recognition. Concern. Maybe even longing, though neither of us dared name it. He froze there, 20-something and unsure, shoulders tight with the weight of everything unsaid. I could see his chest rise and fall, his pulse flicker in the hollow of his throat. And suddenly, the space between us wasn't just physical, it was emotional, trembling, full of all the things we didn't understand yet. I turned, my breath hitching, not from guilt, but from the sudden awareness of being seen, truly seen, in a moment I hadn't meant to share. The room felt smaller then, warmer. My thoughts tangled between memory and meaning, the years that had made us family, and the strange, fragile truth that sometimes the heart doesn't listen to reason. His eyes searched mine, as though trying to find the right distance to stand, between respect and curiosity, between past and present. I wanted to speak, to explain the storm in my chest, but words felt too sharp for a moment so fragile. And so, silence became its own language, one filled with emotion, restraint, and the quiet ache of something beginning and ending at once. Before I could say his name, he took a step forward. And the night held its breath. He didn't move at first. The space between us was charged, fragile, shimmering, like the air before rain. I could see the hesitation in his eyes, that quiet battle between what he thought he should feel and what his heart had already decided. The sound of the clock in the hallway ticked softly, marking seconds that felt far too heavy. I wanted to look away, to hide the tremor that ran through me, but something about his presence held me there. Maybe it was the way he had always looked at people, as if really seeing them, not just their masks or mistakes. When his mother passed years ago, I'd seen him crumble and rebuild himself, piece by quiet piece. And somehow, in that rebuilding, we become bound, not by blood, but by the small mercies we shared in silence. He stepped closer, and the faint scent of rain on his jacket reached me. My throat tightened. I didn't mean to, he began, but stopped, his words breaking like glass halfway through. I could tell he was searching for distance, but the truth was, distance no longer existed. It had dissolved the moment he said my name. I know, I whispered, my voice barely a sound. It's okay. But even as I said it, I wasn't sure if it was. The warmth of his gaze lingered on me, not with desire alone, but with something older, deeper, something that spoke of understanding and confusion at once. He looked down, then back at me, and for a moment, I saw the boy who used to sit at the kitchen table, sketching dreams on scraps of paper, who used to laugh too loud at my terrible cooking. But now he was a man, and the world between us had shifted quietly, impossibly. The silence swelled again, thick with what neither of us dared to name. My fingers curled against the pillow, grounding me. He took another breath, slow and deliberate, as if choosing whether to stay or go. And in that single breath, I realized that whatever came next would change everything. He opened his mouth as if to speak, then stopped. The air trembled. And the night waited, again. He stayed by the doorway, one hand resting on the frame as if the wood itself could steady him. The silence was a fragile bridge between us, one wrong word, and it might collapse. I could see the storm gathering behind his eyes, the struggle of a man who didn't yet have the language for what he was feeling. I looked away, pretending to smooth the edge of the bedsheet, but inside, my heart was 1,000 questions. How had it come to this? Two people bound by circumstance, standing at the edge of something they could neither claim nor deny. We'd both lost pieces of ourselves along the way. I had married his father when I was 29, a kind man, but distant, already carrying the exhaustion of life. His son, quiet then, had barely spoken to me at first. We had built our connection in small, wordless gestures, shared dinners, quiet car rides, late-night talks about everything except what hurt. And somehow, through the years, those silences had turned into something else, something neither of us expected. "I thought you were asleep," he said softly now, his voice lower, steadier. "I couldn't," I replied. "Some nights don't let you rest." He nodded, stepping into the room, the air between us shifting once more. I could see how tired he looked, the long days, the weight of unfinished dreams pressing on his shoulders. He had always been searching for something that felt like home, even when he didn't say it. Maybe that's what bound us, two restless souls, circling the idea of belonging. He sat down in the chair by the window, the moonlight painting his face in soft silver. "You ever feel like everything you've been told about right and wrong doesn't fit real life?" he asked. I met his gaze. Every day. It was the most honest thing I'd said in months. Outside, the wind stirred the curtains, and for a heartbeat, it felt as though time had folded, past and present merging into something tender, dangerous, and alive. Neither of us moved. We didn't need to. The silence said enough. And beneath it all, the unspoken truth pulsed quietly, a love that should never have found a voice, and yet somehow, already had. The wind pressed against the windows, a low hum threading through the silence. He was still sitting near the window, but now his shoulders had softened, his posture less guarded, as if the walls between us were thinning, breath by breath. The moonlight wrapped around him like a confession, pale and unrelenting. I could feel the air change. It was heavier, alive with words we didn't yet know how to say. Every second stretched, weighted with something tender and trembling. He looked at me then, really looked, and the quiet became unbearable. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked. His voice was roughened by emotion, soft but cutting. "Regret what?" I whispered, though I already knew. "Everything you've given up for everyone else." The question hit something deep inside me. For a moment, I couldn't speak. I had spent so long being composed, the steady one, the one who smiled through ache. But his words cracked that calm, and what poured out wasn't shame, it was truth. "Sometimes," I said finally. "Sometimes I wonder who I'd be if I hadn't always chosen silence over desire." He turned his gaze away, jaw tightening. "You shouldn't have to live that way." There was an ache in his tone, not pity, but understanding, and that made it more dangerous. I rose slowly, unsure what I was doing until I was standing closer than I should have been. The faint scent of his skin, the warmth radiating from him, it all felt too real, too immediate. "Life doesn't always give you permission to feel," I murmured. "Sometimes you just do." He looked up then, eyes catching mine with a softness that unraveled me. There it was again, that current, invisible but undeniable. His breath trembled, and for an instant, the room seemed to dissolve around us. But no one moved. Neither dared. Because we both knew what crossing that invisible line would mean, not just for us, but for the world beyond this quiet room. The night felt suspended in glass. 1,000 thoughts collided in the silence, fear, longing, guilt, and something achingly pure that had no name at all. And then, he whispered my name, low, steady, almost reverent. Everything inside me stilled. Outside, thunder murmured in the distance. The storm had begun. The thunder rolled closer, a low pulse that seemed to echo the rhythm of our breaths. He stood now, the chair creaking softly behind him. The air between us shimmered, not with heat, but with the weight of everything unsaid. For the first time, neither of us hid behind calm tones or careful gestures. We were just two people caught in the same storm, hearts stripped bare of pretense. "I shouldn't have come in," he said finally, though his voice betrayed the truth, that he didn't want to leave. "I didn't mean to see you like that." I smiled faintly, the kind that hides 1,000 tangled emotions. "And yet, maybe you were meant to." The words escaped before I could catch them. They hung there, trembling, half confession, half prayer. He looked at me as though hearing something he'd always known but never dared to face. Then, the phone on my nightstand buzzed. A sound so ordinary, yet in that silence, it felt earth-shattering. My husband's name flashed across the screen, a man who'd been gone for months, working overseas, our marriage stretched thin by time and distance. I didn't answer. Couldn't. The flicker of guilt in his eyes mirrored mine. He called, he asked quietly. I nodded. He still does. But sometimes it feels like he's calling from another life. The words broke something fragile open. He stepped closer, slowly, as if walking through water. Then why stay, he asked, the question gentle but piercing. Because love isn't always fair, I said. And sometimes, duty is the only thing left standing when love forgets how to. He exhaled, eyes dark with thought. That's not living. The silence that followed was alive, trembling, full of what we both knew, that something real, maybe forbidden, maybe fated, had already rooted itself between us. But before either of us could speak again, lightning split the sky, bright and unflinching. In that flash, his face looked older, more haunted, like a man realizing that what he wanted most might also be what would destroy him. And for a moment, I wasn't sure if the storm outside was louder than the one inside us. The storm had moved directly above the house, rain thrumming softly against the glass like a heartbeat from the sky. The light flickered once, then steadied. We stood there, the silence between us no longer fragile, just full. Heavy with everything we had tried not to feel, yet too honest to deny. He took a step closer, his voice a whisper barely louder than the rain. I can't pretend I don't feel this anymore. I closed my eyes. Every part of me wanted to run, not from him, but from what this moment meant. And what is this? I asked, though I already knew. It's not wrong to care, he said. It's wrong to keep pretending it doesn't exist. His words hit something deep, something long buried. I had spent years living between shadows, keeping peace, avoiding truth. And now, standing in the half-light of this storm, I realized how starved I was for honesty, for warmth that wasn't wrapped in duty. But before I could answer, he added quietly, you once told me love means choosing what's right even when it hurts. Maybe this is the moment we prove it. The truth of that pierced me. The ache wasn't just about what couldn't be, it was about what we both were brave enough to feel, and wise enough not to destroy. My heart clenched, but there was clarity now, painful, luminous clarity. I reached for his hand, just once. The contact was small, trembling, sacred. You saved me, I said softly. Not by loving me, but by reminding me I still could be loved. He looked at me then, eyes full of stormlight and sorrow. Then let that be enough, he whispered. And for the first time, it was. The rain softened. The power flickered back to life, filling the room with a warm, amber glow. He turned toward the door, pausing just long enough to meet my gaze one last time. There was no anger, no guilt, only peace. The kind that comes when two souls recognize each other and still choose to walk separate roads. When the door closed behind him, I let the silence settle again, not empty this time, but full of meaning. Outside, the sky began to clear. The morning came gently, washed clean by the night storm. Sunlight poured through the curtains in thin golden threads, tracing soft patterns across the floor. The house felt different, quieter, lighter, as if something had finally been released. I sat by the window where he had once stood, my hands wrapped around a cup of tea gone lukewarm. The air still carried the faint scent of rain and electricity, the echoes of everything we'd felt but hadn't crossed. I thought about his words, the truth in them, and the grace it took to walk away when staying might have broken us both. For the first time in years, I didn't feel trapped in my own choices. I felt awake, fragile, yes, but free. The love that had bloomed in silence between us wasn't a mistake, it was a mirror. It showed me what I had lost touch with, tenderness, wonder, the capacity to feel alive again. He hadn't come back since that night. He'd left a note instead, just a few lines on a folded piece of paper. Some feelings aren't meant to be possessed. They're meant to remind us of who we are. I read it once and tucked it away, not out of pain, but gratitude. I stepped outside later that day, barefoot on the wet grass. The world felt open again. The clouds were breaking apart, streaks of blue returning to the sky. I closed my eyes and breathed, letting the warmth of the sun touch my face. Somewhere, he was living his own morning, maybe still thinking of me, maybe not. It didn't matter. What mattered was that we had found something honest in a moment that could have easily turned to ruin. What mattered was that it had changed us, quietly and completely. Love, I realized, isn't always a promise of forever. Sometimes, it's a pause, a reminder that even after years of silence, the heart still remembers how to speak. And as the light touched everything around me, I whispered into the breeze, not to him, but to myself, some storms don't destroy. They cleanse.